Hi, my name's Holly. I'm with Business Link Alberta. Can everybody hear me in the back? This is about as loud as I get, so I'm gonna try. If you want to move forward, if you can. If you can't really hear me, but I'll try to speak at this volume. I'm sorry to the people in front that I might be really loud, or I sound really loud, but I'm in my own head, so who knows. So I'm Holly from Business Link Alberta. My title at Business Link Alberta is Indigenous Business Facilitator. So I'll tell you more about what that means, but it basically means that just because I have Indigenous in my title role does not mean that I cannot help any and all entrepreneurs that ask for my help. It just so happens that I have expertise in the Indigenous area. Who has heard of Business Link before? Ooh, okay, good. A good number of you. So I'm going to talk about who we are at Business Link. I'm going to do an introduction to market research as a whole, and then I'm going to talk about primary and secondary market research, and we're just going to summarize. I'm going to try my best to answer questions that are relevant, or try to make some links that are relevant to the businesses that you're starting. So Penny has given me a little bit of a few backgrounds of what your businesses are. And I know that there are many of you here and many of you wherever you are. Hi, I don't know where the, over here, hi. I don't know what your businesses are, but if there's something unique that you want me to answer, I'm gonna try my best to answer that and show you the tools that you can go and then take and answer your own questions in the future, and then know that we're here as well, and I'll tell you how we're here. So what we can do for you at Business Link, our vision is to be Alberta's entrepreneurial hub. We're a nonprofit organization. 99.99% of the things that we do at Business Link is free. We are funded by both Government of Alberta and the Government of Canada. And we've been around for going on 23 years now. So you're all on your entrepreneurial journey. I'm sure there is many a time beforehand that maybe you've used Google or other search engines to find entrepreneurial resources, or how do I start a business in Lethbridge, how do I start a business in Crossfield, or wherever you're at. And there's lots of resources that come up, right? So what we want to be is basically your go-to firsthand when you're first starting your business to say, this is where you need to go, and kind of really make your journey as easy as possible instead of going along stopping at different kind of areas along the way that aren't very relevant to where you want to go. So just make it as easy and as streamlined as possible. What we can do, what we do, we really focus on one-on-one support. What we want to be known as is your trusted advisor. So at Business Link, we have many entrepreneurs that we help throughout all of Alberta. They call us on a regular basis, whichever way in which they communicate best, whether that's through email, one-on-one meetings, text messages, phone calls. We're always trying to make it easiest on the entrepreneur to get in touch with us and get all their questions asked, or all their questions answered. The one really cool thing that we do is secondary market research. We provide that for free. So that's what I'm going to talk about here. I did send something to Penny today, a PDF form of our secondary market research questionnaire. After today, if you want to get in touch with one of us to kind of flesh out that market research questionnaire more and get really relevant answers, or ask relevant questions to your business and your business plan, then we can definitely do that. But every one of you will be given a copy of that secondary market research questionnaire. And there's a pretty good turnaround time on our secondary market research, completed secondary market research to you. It's usually around 5 to 7 business days, depending how big our queue is. Sometimes we have quite a few in there. Sometimes it may take up to 15 business days, but rest assured you will get your secondary market research back within at least a month. And if you don't know what it means, you can always call us too and say, hey, I just want to go over this quickly with you and the results, and how is this relevant to my business plan? How is it relevant to my overall business? We have a difference. Every one of our staff is trained in specific areas of business. So Myself, of course, being an Indigenous business facilitator, my expertise is within the Indigenous communities as well. I'm my side hustle as an entrepreneur, I'm also a consultant, so proposal writing is something really huge for me. So that's kind of my area of expertise, as well as I've worked on a lot of things with regulations and licensing of different types of businesses, such as daycares and hair salons. So that's kind of where my expertise leads. We have many of our business advisors some are in import-export, some are in new technologies, some are in nonprofit organizations, newcomers, all of the different kind of areas that encompass entrepreneurship. So we know as much as we can on the licenses, regulations, registrations, permits, what type of structure of business should you be choosing, and we can help you find your way there. What are you going to expect? If you're a sole proprietor versus an incorporation, what are the different types of registrations you need to fill out? Where should you be filling them out? Should a lawyer fill them out for you? All of those questions. Penny will also make this available to you, the slideshow. And anything that is blue and underlined is a hyperlink, so it will take you automatically to whatever it's telling you it's about. So the one and only thing that we charge for at BusinessLink is our Ask an Expert service. It's our providing access to experts. So if you're at a point in your business where you need to talk to a lawyer or talk to an accountant, but you don't necessarily maybe want to hire somebody right now, you just want to ask a couple questions, we have some amazing lawyers and accountants that come in, I believe it's once every 2 weeks, and they do one-on-ones with entrepreneurs for $25 for a half hour. If you have lots of questions, you can book a whole hour for 50 minutes or $50. And it's a really good transition to just before you want to hire somebody, because we all know that lawyers and accountants cost a lot of money, right? So the other things that we do, we connect with other organizations. The ecosystem of entrepreneurship in Alberta, it's vast. There's a lot of things going on. So we want to make sure that you're getting in touch with the absolute right organization and resource that is relevant to you and is going to be helpful to you. I always say one of my main goals in my role is to work with an entrepreneur, get them to a point that they have a fully completed and stellar business plan, and set them up with somebody who's either going to be an alternative lender, or maybe they're eligible for different types of grant streams, or maybe they need to go to their traditional lender, to their bank. So it's just going through all of those processes and then really fleshing it out and saying, do you really need some startup capital? Can you do this on a shoestring budget until you start gaining some revenue, and then get you to a point that maybe once you expand or need to buy some more equipment or hire a new staff member, is that maybe when you need to get some funding? So a lot of people think, well, in order for me to start, I need money. And that's not always necessarily truth, right? And then the last piece is the support for Indigenous entrepreneurs and communities. We do live training webinars and workshops on our website every Friday. It's usually from 10 to 11. Every Friday, it's a brand new it's a brand new topic with a new subject matter expert. We're always new and innovative, trying to see the gaps in the entrepreneurial world and fill them with our training. So actually this Friday is going to be another one on market research. So if you're hankering for more market research on Friday, then you should attend that. It's an hour, and Carrie Morton is one of our in-house specialists in Edmonton, and she will be able to answer tons of questions that maybe I won't be able to answer, but you can definitely get a lot more information from her, a different perspective. And then we do have monthly networking opportunities, only in Calgary and Edmonton, unfortunately, because we only have staff in Calgary and Edmonton. So our main head office is in Edmonton, where we have about 20 staff members. We have 2 up in Fort McMurray, and then there's 4 of us down in Calgary. So we try to get Alberta-wide as much as possible, but we also make a lot of trips down to Lethbridge. So if you want to be a BusinessLink client and you want to meet with us one-on-one, we'll definitely make that happen for you. And then, of course, just that collaboration with participating and supporting in any type of events that come up in the business community. So market research, before Penny gave you the kind of introduction to primary and secondary, did everybody know that there was a difference between primary and secondary market research? Yeah? So I'll go through, I heard yes and no. So I'll go through and just give you more information on primary and secondary. I do want to forewarn that this is a 2-hour presentation that I'm cramming into an hour and a half. So if I speak fast, I'm sorry. If I do and you don't understand what I'm saying, then just tell me to slow down and I'll try to just focus on the really important things. But in my opinion, this whole, everything that we talk about here is important, so I don't want to skim through it. This is just a quick note that our marketing team puts in, that the fear of unknown always keeps many people from achieving greatness in our uncharted territory. So entrepreneurship, entrepreneurs starting their own small businesses, a lot of the time they just feel like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if people are going to want this. I don't know if it's a good idea. Am I being innovative? Are people going to buy it? So I guess the end of the day, you don't know until you try, right? So I'm not going to ask everyone what type of business they're starting, because we're going to be here for a long time if we do that. But if there's something really unique that you'd like me to focus on, please let me know. So all in all, what is market research? It's researching characteristics of your target market, your industry as a whole, and all of the competition that is competing with you. And we'll get into more of the competition afterward. But sometimes people may think that their competitors are only the businesses that are in the exact same industry, offering the exact same products and services that you are as well, and that's not necessarily the case, right? You can always think of something like, I always say something really simple, an ice cream shop and a candy shop. Two different things, right? They're not selling the same thing, but at the end of the day, the customer's only going to probably go to one of those. They're going to spend their money here or they're going to spend their money there. So it's knowing that, even though you may not be exactly in the same, they're still considered your competitor. There's indirect and direct competitors. So I'll get into that kind of a little bit after as well. But really what it's doing is gathering, analyzing, and interpreting all of the information that you can get your hands on and that you can, the research that you conduct yourself, and putting it into a way that complements your business plan and makes it simple for you. So I'm one for business plans 100% of the time. I think any business, regardless of how big or how small, should have a business plan. I am a pure advocate for writing the business plan themselves, because you don't know your business, no one knows your business the way you do, right? And it's not fun. I've never had anyone say I love writing business plans. It's a long, long journey. It's a lot of time and effort put into it, but knowing that there's an end point and there's resources out there that you can send your business plan to, and we can, like BusinessLink, we do offer that service as well. So we will review your business plan either as a whole, or what entrepreneurs I work with really tend to like to do is piece by piece, section by section. So writing whichever section they feel most comfortable with first, sending it our way. We can vet it and edit it and give our feedback and send it back, and then that way they know if they're on the right track or not. And we have templates, we have workbooks. There's tons of templates and workbooks that are out there. I'm sure you guys have one that you're using right now. Some people only like to use one, and some people like to use all of them and use bits and pieces of all the ones that they think are relevant to them. So some questions to consider about your business. Can everyone hear me okay? Is this voice level still good? Okay. Does your idea serve an unserved need? Do you understand the trends that are influencing your industry? Do people know what kind of business they want to buy, what product or services they will buy from you? Or do you understand your advantages over the competition? So I know that I just briefly seen in your workbook that you're using the value proposition canvas as well as the business model canvas. I think those are amazing tools to go through, and for pretty much the viability piece of your business, that business model canvas is a really, really wonderful tool to use. And to just see, if you don't think that, or if you don't know if your business will be viable or feasible, to use that right off the bat. I've also seen a lot of people not only use it for the entirety of their business plan, but sections, or if they're a product and service type of business, they'll do one for products and one for services. Or if they're a business-to-business business and a business-to-consumer business all in one, then they use those for the different target markets that they have, because it's very different how you're going to advertise to a business versus how you're going to advertise to a customer, right? You're not going to use the same channels. So knowing that that value proposition piece is huge, knowing what makes you different, what makes you unique, what problem are you solving for your customer, and why are they going to come to you versus all the other people that are out there doing the same thing or similar, right? Also knowing who your target markets are. You have different levels of target markets. You have your primary and your secondary and so on and so forth, right? So the best example I give for that is toys. As parents, how many parents, grandparents, people with children in their lives? There's a few of you, and soon to be probably more in the future, right? Toys they will never advertise to us, the parents, or the aunts and uncles, or the caregivers, or anyone. They're gonna advertise to the children. So my daughter will come to me and say, I want this toy. And I'm like, I have no idea what that toy is. Never seen it in my life, but you want it. Because they're advertising to her. They're going on YouTube, they're getting into the mind of their target market, right? They're like, what is our target market looking at? What are they eating? What are they seeing? All of these pieces, and then they get into the mind of them and realize, I'm gonna get to them through our advertising. And now that's the primary target market, is the person who's actually going to use the product, my daughter. The secondary target market are the parents, me, the one who's actually gonna dish out the cash for that toy, right? So you can realize that there are different target markets, and when I need to know where to find that toy, they need to know how to tell me where to find that toy, right? So they need to get into my head. Well, what are moms doing? Where are moms going? What are they looking at? Are they on Facebook? Are they on Instagram? Are they, all of those questions start to arise. Do they like sales? That's another piece. So some of the reasons for conducting secondary or market research as a whole, definitely that idea of validation, testing your assumptions that you have about your product or service. There's lots of times that entrepreneurs will start businesses selling and making a specific type of product, and when you ask who their target market is, they say women. And we go, okay, but what kind of woman, right? There's so many different types of women. Not all women are gonna buy your product. So you really have to narrow in on really specific details about your target market. I need to know their income range. I need to know their marital status, their race, what languages they speak. Are they a newcomer? Are they a permanent resident? Are they a Canadian citizen? Do they have children? Like really figuring out who the person is that's spending the most money on your product or service. And then getting into their mind and understanding, how do we get to market to them? But vetting that out, knowing, okay, I need to really realize who my target market is. It's not just women, it's this very specific type of woman. And there's tons of those women out there. It also will help you with much better business decisions. It's gonna save you a lot of time by reducing a lot of guesswork, as well as saving money on marketing. So I use hearing aids for an example. Hearing aids have a very specific primary target market. They have somebody, it's usually elderly people who have started losing their hearing. So if I am going to start a hearing aid business and I want to target 2 elderly people, I do not want to put an ad on Snapchat probably, because maybe there's not a lot of elderly people that are on Snapchat. I'm not even on Snapchat. I don't know, half my friends aren't on Snapchat. So I don't think that there are a lot of, I know my grandmother isn't on Snapchat. I don't even know what it is actually. I just downloaded it because, I only downloaded it because my daughter likes the faces, so that's it. But then somebody gave me the argument, well, there's a lot of caregivers out there who help their elderly grandparents who are on Snapchat. So maybe that is, a good idea to market to them. But when you're getting into business, first and foremost, you don't want to spend a whole bunch of money on marketing on all these different levels and all these different platforms focus on one that you're going to get your main target market firsthand, and then push it out to the other channels in which you can advertise. I'm just going to assume if anyone has a question, please put your hand up, or anyone wants anything to add. There are some slides in here that say questions, but let me know. Just yell it out if you have one. So some market research supports as well will help you with the market research. It'll help with your marketing plan, your operational, and your financial plan. There's sections in the business plan when it comes to competition. A lot of the time, entrepreneurs or those that are writing business plans will skim over that very quickly. It'll be one sentence. It'll be, I have no competition, and which is always wrong, right? 100% of the time, it's wrong. You always have competition. And then also the industry profiles of the business plan are often left pretty wanting. So you want to build those pieces up, because anyone that you go to for any type of financial support, a partner or an investor, they're going to look really specifically at those areas of your business plan. So knowing that you should definitely get that market research done. And then with your marketing plan, it's going to help with that pricing and advertising piece as well. We kind of talked about that already. Your operational plan, location is a huge reason for doing market research. I have quite a few examples, but I had one example of a person in Calgary who wanted to start a brick and mortar restaurant, kind of a high-end, classy restaurant in a neighborhood that wasn't so high-end and classy. There wasn't a lot of people with disposable income. There wasn't a lot of her target market there. And she was going to sign a 3-year lease on this brick and mortar location. She's this close to signing it, and luckily she came to see me first. And I said, heck no, don't do it, because your target market is not there. And that was, I think there were 3 restaurants in there previously in the past 3 years that didn't make it. They got out of there. So there's a reason why, right? So looking at, well, what does the demographic look like if you're going to do a brick and mortar? What's the demographic around that area? Are there a lot of my target market there? Or would my target market want to go there? Would they want to go to the trendy part of Calgary and Kensington and the other one on the other side, Inglewood? Would they want to go there? Probably. So it's okay to open it there, even though your primary target market doesn't necessarily live around that area. They're willing to drive to that area for the experience. The other one is opening a coffee shop. So if you're going to work, I'm just going to say you all work in downtown Lethbridge, and you're all going to work in the morning, and you want to stop for a coffee, and there's a coffee shop on the left-hand side of the road, and there's a coffee shop on the right-hand side of the road. Which one are you going to go to? The right. Why? It's easier, right? You're not even going to go across the lanes and pull over just to get a cup of coffee, because here, this one is right here. You're going to pull over, and you're going to get it, and you're going to go. And unfortunately, there's 3 reasons why people will spend money. They'll spend money, and you all do this too. It's either the best one, an emotional attachment, because something makes you feel a certain way. You like those pair of shoes, they make you feel good. You like that hockey stick, it makes you feel good. You have 25 hockey sticks already. You have 52 pairs of shoes already. You don't need them, right? You only need 1 pair of shoes until you wear them out and you need to buy another one. You only need 1 hockey stick until you wear it out and buy another one. But it makes us feel a certain way to have those possessions. The second reason is necessity. We need to spend money on food, clothing, shelter, all of the things that we actually need, right? Some may argue vehicles and gas, but that's not necessarily a necessity at all. So there's those 2, and then the third one is convenience. You're going to spend your money somewhere because it's easy for you to do something. So something is simple. It's not simple now, but you can go to the Superstore. You can download the app. You can pick out your groceries. You can pull into the parking lot, and they will come and put them in your trunk, and then you'll drive away home. And you don't even need to step foot in the grocery store anymore. You do it, and you don't even need to give cash. You just, transfer the money. It's technologically, like, we're in such an advanced kind of stage that we even were 5 years ago, right? And it works in all of those areas. So We will do that because house cleaning, for example, a lot of house cleaning businesses or will have taken off because people want to spend time with their families. The time that they have off of work, they don't want to spend cleaning their homes. They don't want to spend doing laundry. They're going to hire those, contract those out, get someone to do it, and pay them money. Because now we're really realizing time equals money in our society. So location's everything for your business. If you're brick and mortar, it really will sometimes make or break you. And then lastly is your financial plan for projections for revenues and expenses. I'm going to get into some of the nitty-gritty details of the actual information that we can pull for you and show you. It gets some of it's kind of creepy. We can get really, really specific details for you. But it's important because we know within the Lethbridge region or within the Southern Alberta region or within the Foothills region, how much money people are spending on stuff. We can even pull, if you're going to start dealing asparagus, we can pull in how much money was actually spent last year on asparagus in Southern Alberta. So now you know, okay, well, I can understand because in July, people bought $400,000 worth of asparagus, and in December, they bought $10,000 worth of asparagus. So when you're looking at your financial projections, people often say, I don't know how I'm going to pull out a 3-year projection of my business because I don't know how I'm going to do. You know, there's always up seasons and down seasons and slow seasons and fast seasons and all the above, but there's the actual statistics and information that show you how much money people are actually spending on the service or product that you have. So how to do it? The primary research is going to gather first-hand information to answer a very specific question that you have. There's different ways in which you can conduct primary market research, and we'll talk about those. But it's the more fun stuff, in my opinion. It's the qualitative stuff. It's the feeling. It's the perceptions, behaviors. It really gets into, it's more of the open-ended questions. Give me your opinion. Give me, some feedback. So that's the real qualitative data. The secondary research is the not so fun stuff, in my opinion, but the actual very much necessary stuff to build your business. So it's looking at all the,
Question,
yes.
which you'll need to repeat.
Okay.
It says, what is the geographic scope of the market research you offer? I am based in Lethbridge, but I have mobility not limited geographically and may involve online content. Can your market research cover areas in BC? So maybe just to shorten it, say graphic.
Yeah, so geographical range of our market research and what we can cover. I'm going to get more into the details of the databases that we use at BusinessLink, but we can cover nationally as well as North America wide, and it really depends. So we belong to 8 databases. It depends on which database. Some of them are only Canada, some of them are North America wide. So definitely we can pull market research from the British Columbia region. And yes, so the quantitative data is going to give you the hard numbers, the percentages, the quantities of something, the numbers. It's giving you the what. So how to do it? You're going to start off by asking yourself, why am I doing it? What question do I want answered? Do I want to really hone in on my target market? Do I want to know who those target markets are? Do I want to and know where they are, who they are, what they're doing, how much money they make, where they live, all that? Or do I want to know about financial projections? Do I want to know about my competitors, or do I want to know about it all, right? So you're going to want to be really specific about why you're doing the research. Number 2, you're going to find out what you want to find out about that specific area that you're focusing on. And then you're going to want to know how you're gathering it. So as primary research, we'll talk about ways in which you can go ahead and gather that information. For secondary market research, you can come to us to get that done for you, or you can go to your local library, your University of Lethbridge library, go back in archives, use Google Scholar for a lot of the stuff, use magazines, websites, Facebook, Instagram, social media platforms. The list goes on and on of the ways in which you can do that. Then actually do it, or get us to do it. review it once you get it all back, because it is a lot of information that you get, and then apply it. Figure out where it needs to go. So I just said, yeah, if you have questions, let me know. So primary market research, really what it is, it's gathering firsthand information. It's communicating with potential buyers of your product or service, and it's communicating with other business owners, whether in your industry or not. So remember, you have indirect and direct competition. I open a laundromat, and another laundromat is going to be my direct competition. A dry cleaner is my indirect competition. They're not doing the exact same thing I'm doing, but they're doing something very similar, right? Now, you can also, the ways in which you can do this is, before I get to that. But the ways in which you can do it are varied. By communicating with the buyers of your product or service, you can do this through surveys, through focus groups if you'd like. You can do this through just one-on-one interactions, conversations. You can put out polls on Facebook. You can put out polls on Microsoft Outlook. You can do up surveys on places like SurveyMonkey. You can do that for free. So there's lots of ways that you can gather that firsthand. And then with your other businesses in your industry or not, you can just go in and conduct your own research. So something that's really interesting is when you look at a lot of sales that happen in any grocery stores, supermarkets, or even clothing retailers, things like that, you'll notice a lot of the time the big sales are not going to be in line with paydays. They're going to be kind of obscure days. Same thing goes for things like happy hour, right? Your happy hour is from like 3 to 5. And chances are your target market is usually still working from 3 to 5, right? So it's a way in which they're still saying, hey, we offer good service, we offer great deals, but they're not actually going to spend, they're not going to lose any or a lot of money by doing it, right? Because they're honing in their customers, they're saying, and then you think about it later, you're like, I remember seeing a sign that said there was 10-cent wings at that place. I'm going to go to that place. And then you go to that place and they're like, oh, sorry, it's only 10-cent wings from Monday to Friday or Monday to Thursday from 1 to 2:30 or something obscure like that, right? So they really, it's a marketing ploy. Unless you're a loyal customer and you're always there and you know when and where to do it, it's usually a way to get you to come back. And then also, if you're gonna open a restaurant, I always say, if you're a great cook, the best cook in the world, and you wanna open a restaurant, go work in a restaurant first, if you never have before. Because you could be the best, most amazing cook, but if you've never run a restaurant, then you might not really be that great at running a restaurant, right? So even if it's just something like going to work in a KFC and seeing how everything works, you still gotta buy the napkins and the mops, and you still gotta you gotta have everything that actually runs a business. It's not just cooking the food, right? So pros and cons of primary market research are, the pros are that it is local information. You'll have a very specific question that is answered because you're gonna ask that question, and it allows for that feedback. The cons are, it may be time consuming because you may be taking a lot of people out for coffee, which is why it may be expensive. It's also time is money, right? You're spending a lot of time doing it, a lot of time equals more expensive. Even if it's not actually dishing out money, you're still could have been doing something that would make you money. And you could have a low response rate. So some ways around this is, you're gonna look at surveys a lot differently as an entrepreneur now. How many people have gone to, well, I think we've all gone to Safeway, Co-op, Walmart, Winners, whatever, and you see the cashier pull out your receipt and they circle it and they say, take this survey and you could win a $500 gift card or whatever, right? And how many people have taken those surveys? We've got 4 people. And out of the 4 of you, have you ever won anything? Did you win something? What did you win?
I won a couple of different things.
Wow.
Yeah.
Were they local small businesses or were they the big chains?
Well, several of them were with the university. And
Okay.
a couple of small businesses and large.
One large business.
Oh.
Which large business, if you don't mind me asking?
Can't remember right now. I have a feeling it was like Airmont or something.
Oh, cool. Okay. Okay. Anyone else
You
here?
can get $2 off on some of them, that's.
You can get $2 off, yeah?
Immediate.
Yeah. Anyone else won anything? No? So no one, I've done this for 2.5 years. I've asked that question every time. No one's ever won the Walmart one. And I think last count we've presented to 3,700 people. So no one has ever won the Walmart one. No one's ever won the winners one. First time I've heard somebody win Air Miles, that's cool. But the smaller businesses are the ones where your chances of winning are triple-fold, like quadruple-fold, right? There's a really good chance you're gonna win. So when you, as a small business now, want to have that survey, whether it's something as simple as those little cards on the table when you're at a restaurant saying, how did we do today? It's even, I don't know if there's anybody here who's in the service industry who was a server in a restaurant, but back in the day when I was a server, I had to ask those questions, how was everything today, right? And every single time I had to keep track of if it was good or if it was not good. And I had to go to my manager and say, everybody said it was good, we're good. Or we had a complaint, and this is the reason. And it was never about me, because I was wonderful. It was always about the food. But I was always had to keep track of that, right? And even something like that's market research. So knowing the satisfaction rate overall of your business, knowing the product that you're selling is great, knowing that you can get that feedback, and it's important for your marketing. So it's important to put it on your website. Put quotes from your customers saying, this was the best jacket I ever bought, and I will come back and buy it again, and this is why. Or that was the best consulting meeting I've ever had in my life. And those are what actually brings people in. Because when I look at something, and I want to buy something, I'm sure all of you do this too, we Google it first. We look at the reviews. Those reviews are so important. So just give them, the main thing for me would say is give them a huge incentive for them to do your survey. I've done the Walmart survey. I did it twice, and each one took me an hour to do. So they asked me the most specific questions about my experience that day at Walmart and said, you're gonna win a $500 gift card, and I never did, right? But I wasted 2 hours of my life doing those surveys. And I'll always remember one time I thought you were saying, hi, I have a question. No. I went to Medicine Hat College and I asked that question, and there was one lady in the audience who said she was about 22, 23. She said since she was 18 years old, she did every single one of those surveys her entire life. And I said, have you ever won anything? She said, no. And I said, how much time, if you were to really look at how much time you've spent doing those surveys, how much time did you spend? She's like, probably like 40 hours. 40 hours of her entire life gone for nothing, right? So give them some sort of an incentive to do it. Give them, do this survey and off your first purchase 50% off. Buy one, get one free. Give them some sort of something for them to want to do it. Because if there's nothing in it for us, we don't want to do it, right? We're like, forget it. What good is it going to do me? And it could even be something as simple as buying $1.70 gift cards from Tim Hortons or whatever, enough for a cup of coffee. And standing in the middle of, what do you guys call this here, Main Street? We called it Main Street at my university, but standing in the middle of a very busy part of the university with a clipboard and saying, I have 5 questions. It's going to take 2 minutes of your life and you get a free coffee out of it. Watch, your response rate's going to skyrocket, right? And it's just knowing what you want to know about your customer. I remember one time I was in Vegas. I was 12, and there was this woman, and she said, they're filming a show, like a live audience show. You get paid $20 and a slice of pizza. And for a 12-year-old in Vegas, that's amazing, right? I was with my parents, so it wasn't like I was by myself wandering with $20 and pizza, but I went in, I watched a show for 6 hours. They filmed a show. And I sat there for 6 hours in Vegas because I wanted my piece of pizza and $20. And I got it. But they never told me, hey, this is gonna take you 6 hours and you get $20 and a free piece of pizza. I would have said, forget it. I'm not doing that. See you later. So tell your survey responser how long this is going to take you. This is only going to take you 3 minutes. It's only going to take you 30 seconds. I only have one question or 5 or whatever. Let them know and then give them the incentive. So those surveys and questionnaires, like I said, everything that's hyperlinked is going to take you to examples of those. Asking those questions to a sample of the target population that you're looking at as your target market. Making them pretty simple, right? One question per question. And I know that sounds really stupidish, but it's true because people will often try to cram they want to know as much as they can, so they'll try to cram a lot of information and make those questions twofold. So it would be something like, do you enjoy caffeinated drinks? What is your favorite type of soda? So those are conflicting, right? Because you could not like caffeinated drinks, but you could also drink soda that's non-caffeinated. So it doesn't make sense that put them as 2 separate questions. Interviews are semi-structured discussions with an individual, like that standing outside with a clipboard and asking people to answer a couple questions for an incentive. And then there's focus groups. This is when you're introducing a new type of innovative, like a new technology or a new stream of service or product that maybe not a lot of people do or hasn't been done before. This is going to really hone in and say, okay, this is a good idea or not a good idea. And there's a lot of sports companies that do this. Nike does this all the time with their new products. They'll bring people in, makeup companies will do this, all of those kind of food companies, they'll test out new products, right? So what you can do is, in a survey, you can put some information in there that says, hey, can I contact you in the future? Can I add you to a mailing list? Can you give me your email address or usually email address. Phone numbers are kind of obsolete now, right? No one's going to answer your phone call, which brings me to another something afterwards. But you can ask that information and say, can we follow up with you later for an interview, for a better incentive? And then after the interview, you can say, hey, can we follow up with you later to be part of our focus group? So there's always some kind of leeway. And then if they're part of your circle of your contact list, then now you can start pushing out coupons or pushing out special delivery dates, or a brand new product is launching soon, or whatever, right? The actual contact lists of businesses are probably one of the most important assets of a business because they've already established that customer base. So when buying a business, that's what a lot of people look at is, what does the client base look like, and can I have your contacts? So observation is another really important part of it. This is kind of the stalking part. So if you're opening a laundromat, go to a laundromat, right? Go and sit there for a bit. See what's going on. See who the target demographic is coming in, spending money at the laundromat. See what the high times and the low times are, the busy days and the slow days. Go to different types of laundromats throughout different areas. Go to one that's on the outside of the city. Go to one in the different quadrants of the city, and you'll really get a feel for laundromats and who your target market is if you're opening a brick and mortar in a specific location. In Calgary, for example, we have the 4 quadrants of the city. There's one quadrant that the city doesn't even have a laundromat. So that tells you something, because the target market does not live in that area. So they're not even going to bother opening a laundromat there. So if a coffee shop, go to the coffee shop. If you're starting a coffee shop, go sit in there. Sit in there for a whole day. See who comes in. See how long people stay. What are they doing while they're staying? How much money are they spending while they're there? We know a lot of people work remotely now, right? With just their laptop. They can work anywhere with a Wi-Fi connection. So coffee shops are huge. They're offices now. How long are people actually staying there? Test marketing is pretty big as well. If you're going to start a new product or a new service, launch a new service, start a new food, whatever, you should start small. Don't make a bunch of them. Make like 10,000 units of something and then not be able to sell them, right? So there's different ways you can do it on Kickstarter. You can just set up at different types of fairs or introduce it into your store or online or whatever. And if it sells out, if you make 50 of something and they sell out in a day or in an hour or in 10 minutes, you know you have something. You know you need to start buying. But if you're sitting on that product for 4 months, it's not something that you should continue, right? So just starting small and making it bigger. And then also, like I said, if you haven't worked in a restaurant, don't start a restaurant. If you haven't built a house, don't start a house building company, right? Work in that industry first, whether it's an actual job in the industry or whether it's volunteering. Work there, and then you can see the inner workings of the whole thing. So try to understand which method you want to use, or you're going to use all of them. So some tips: have some sort of strategy in place. Think of who your main target market is. Understanding, again, getting in their minds, how is the best way to reach them. Determine what you're trying to get out of the research. If you go in blind and not knowing, I don't know what I want to know, but I know I need to know something, just really hammering out some really main points, and then you can build on those later. And then it can be really, really overwhelming to have a clipboard and stand there or approach someone on the street and ask for a survey, but you can't do anything until you try, right? And if you have that incentive, that's more of a reason for them to answer your questions. Include an introduction, like I said, and who you are, why you're doing it. Contact information is really key. How long it's going to take, that's huge. And then ask if you can follow up with them, because chances are they could be a potential customer, especially if you've targeted them because they're part of your target market. You're like, oh, women between 18 and 25, I think that's a woman between 18 and 25. I'm going to go talk to her, and I'm going to show her my awesome product, and I'm going to give her buy one, get one free, or 50% off your first purchase. Automatically, that could be your first customer, right? So secondary market research, before I start, any questions? Any questions from remote folks? Hey guys.
One that says business link is awesome service. So it's a compliment. Sorry.
Oh, compliment. Thank you. Business Link is an awesome service, they said. So, yes, hi.
I'm curious with this research, like what role bias plays. Like, is there certain things to watch out for when asking questions and like listening questions and stuff like that?
Yeah, so you mean like leading? Like leading them to us? Yeah, there definitely is.
So repeat bias too.
Oh, so sorry. There was just a question in the audience. Is there a bias of pushing people in a direction basically to answer the question the way you want them to answer that question, right? So it's like, do you like coffee? What's your favorite type of coffee? Or something along those lines, right? It's like, you like coffee, you know you do. Just tell me what kind of coffee you like. And coffee's really great. What's their favorite type of coffee? So you have to be as neutral as possible and try not to lead them into that direction. So there's quite a bit of information on how to not do that, and I could probably include that to Penny, just to kind of give, we have kind of a guide, I guess, to survey, to conducting the survey and creating the survey. So it's really pointed to the point questions. No slang. No, don't use any slang. Don't use any of those kind of indicator words or like awesome or great or cool or amazing. Just make it very, very neutral, and don't use too technical terms either. Just make it, like pretty simple to read, that anybody can read it and answer the question very, very fast. But I'll include that to Penny, and she can forward it off to the group. So secondary market research, and I'll be quite honest. Okay, so I'm at 6:57. I have 30 minutes, maximum 45, so I'm going to try to zip through this as much as possible. When I started at Business Link, market research was the most dreaded presentation that I had to do. I did not want to do it. I had to watch it a couple times, and then I realized, wow, it's really important information. It's actually kind of cool. So it's actually my favorite one to present now, whereas before I didn't want anything to do with it. And it was because of the secondary market research piece, because I don't know if I'm a left brain or a right brain person, but I like that artistic, emotional attachment. I like that quantitative data, or qualitative data, right? I like that really primary stuff. The secondary stuff was all numbers and just, I don't know. But really, it's so important. So I'll tell you why. When you're doing primary market research, what you're going to look at is existing information that's already been done. You're going to look at government resources, public or university library databases, industry associations, If you are in, and there's tons of industry associations out there, if you're in a specific type of industry, please be a part of that association. It'll cost you money, but remember that those are always eligible on your taxes, right? So you can get a lot of that money, a lot of it is deductible. But be a part of an industry association because there's tons of opportunity there. Magazines, newspapers, social media, or online resources, and of course us at BusinessLink. This will tell you all the databases that we belong to. We belong to the Canadian Business Network, where we get approximately $45,000 of funding per year to be a part of all of these databases. So they're very, very expensive to be a part of. So the pros and cons, we'll get off right off the bat of market research, of secondary market research, is the pros is it can be free or low cost. It is relatively easy to gather, and it gives a broad view of information. The cons are the data may be old because it's coming from the government a lot of the time, and the government isn't, I don't know if you know this, but they're not really fast at updating their stuff. So we're still looking at stuff. Who knew, right? Nobody knew that. So yeah, it may be a couple years old. And it may be less relevant to your needs, or it may not exist. And the reasons for that is when we look at your secondary market research, when we're looking at your industry, if you're very specific, if you're innovative, if you're a brand new type of business, there's not going to be a lot of market research on that because you're kind of the pioneer in that, right? So we find something that's as tethered to what you're doing as possible. How many people here know their NAICS code? 2 people? Okay, your homework, I'll give you homework. Go home and find out what your NAICS code is. Just Google NAICS, it's your North American Industry Classification System. It starts out as a 2-digit number, and it builds out further and further the more specific that you get. Maybe I should show you an example. Well, there's examples at the bottom here, but I'll show you how to get there. Somebody give me a business idea.
Hairdresser.
Hairdresser. Okay. So these are all the NAICS codes that are out there. Now you're going to go specifically into, and I should know this. It's not professional, it's not retail. Maybe it is retail. Okay, if we're not going to find hairdresser, we're going to find women's clothing, because I know that's in here. Health and personal care. So now we started out at 44. We're breaking it down. Now we're at 446. Health and personal care stores. Again, going to 4461. Health and personal care stores. Clicking, and you keep clicking on it until you find it. So cosmetics, beauty supplies, and perfume stores. This might be just for the store, not the actual. I think this is for the store, not the actual hair salon. But this is your NAICS code would be 446120 if you were selling cosmetics, beauty supplies, or perfume, or perfume. So this is for every single type of business that is out there. There is a NAICS code, and it may not be specific to what you're doing because it's maybe you're a hairdresser for dogs or a hairdresser for cats or something. Yes.
There's also, that's the 2012 one, but there's a 2017 version.
Oh, is there?
I don't know if there's that's the newest one I can find.
The 2017 one? Oh, that's good. That's good feedback. Yeah, that is the 2012 one. Okay, so I'll tell our marketing team to update that then. Thank you for that. So don't go to this one, go to the one for 2017. So if you put it, Google NAICS code, it will take you to the newest version. It'll be the same kind of setup as this. There will be added ones in there probably from whatever industries kind of opened up from 2012 to 2017, they'd be added in there. So yeah, go home and find out what your NAICS code is if you don't already know, because you will need it for your secondary market research. It's also good to put at the beginning of your business plan. So we're going to get into some of the sample resources that are out there right now that may be beneficial for you in the different types of industries that you're in. So these ones focus on industry and economy. The Innovation, Science and Economic Development Canada will give you overview of all of the major industries in Canada. Key Small Business Statistics is going to give you a big picture overview of all the small businesses in Canada itself. And then Government of Alberta Economic Trends give you short monthly documents on economic trends, including an in-focus topic. And I don't think this is the regional, no. Okay. So because we have remote folks and we have folks here in Lethbridge, and I'm assuming maybe not all of you are from Lethbridge or all your businesses are not located in Lethbridge, there is quite a bit of information. These are Calgary specific. I have included some Lethbridge specific as well, but just use this as kind of a stepping stone, a kind of a template to find the other ones that would be relevant to the area that you're in. So I have included Lethbridge Economic Development, and you can look at the Lethbridge Chamber, and then again for the different areas, the remote areas or rural areas that you're in. So albertacanada.com is going to give you more industry and economy profile information. The actual profiles in Albertan industries, there's the economic and the regional dashboard, and I will show you the economic dashboard through the Government of Alberta. So you can get into really specific information. You can highlight a lot of different areas, but it breaks it down for the dashboard view for economic dashboard. It will give you kind of a holistic view of the different types of business activity, consumer, agriculture, forestry, all throughout Alberta, the revenue of those different industries, and you can build that out more. You can definitely open more tabs on that. I like the regional dashboard personally. You can build a custom region. You can compare municipalities. You can explore by different indicators. So if we were to look at, say, Lethbridge, and let's do Lethbridge, the city itself, and it'll give us more information on all the metrics of Lethbridge, and it goes on and on and on, even down to how many fire incidents there were in 2014, and the quality of life expectancy. You can do explore an indicator where you can, let's say you're opening, I don't know, a healthcare store. So you want to know maybe how many people are overweight and how many people are what the life expectancy of different areas are. So you can add, it'll spit out kind of the lowest life expectancy rate of all of Alberta, and then all the way down to the highest is Banff. So we should all move to Banff. But Wood Buffalo region is, I don't know what this one is, the Bathy 196. Not sure where that is. But Wood Buffalo, for example, has a 74.3% life expectancy rate. So interesting, right? When you look at that and you look at the area in which Wood Buffalo region, Fort McMurray area. So if you were to open a health food store in that area, would that be your target market? Might be, right? But you can definitely add, you can add more. You can build custom regions. You can zoom in and add a lot of information. You can compare them to other regions based on a lot of information. So we could do Lethbridge County compared to Banff. We could go to the dashboard and see what the differences between the two areas are. So it takes a lot of playing with. Use the different tabs. zone in on different areas, and if you're, more of an online area, you're an online business, then kind of understanding the different cities that would have your primary target market in, and the majority of your primary target market. And you can use this to see a lot more specific information about your primary target market. So, any kind of questions around the Alberta Economic Dashboard or Regional Dashboard that I can go more in detail on, or can go, yeah?
Can you look up how many people are going organic these days? With like foods, healthcare products, and everything like that?
Yeah, on the dashboard? No, I don't know if that's a possibility to really, like, you could look up specific information. Oh, sorry, I keep forgetting. So the question was, is there a way in which we can look at the growth in economic food? The growth in organic food that's been happening in the past, I'd say 10 years, right? So on here, you could probably find some of the criterias based on different types of indicators of probably that life expectancy would be one of overweight population, one of probably more of the how much family income is in different areas, because a lot of those who are on the higher spectrum of the income range will be buying organic. So finding those types of indicators definitely will, but not necessarily very specific to how much. Our market research will be able to find the industry profile on organic grown and produced food, definitely. So we could spend a lot of time in here and find some lots of very specific information and compare a lot of things. But if I say go home and just play with it and see what comes up, but just stay under I really like the Alberta Regional Dashboard. It gives you a lot of those options there. Okay, so the financial performance data, this will give you the average financial statistics of the industry based on the NAICS code. So that's why, one of the reasons why the NAICS code is important. Calgary Economic Development as well as Lethbridge Economic Development will find you some information on the business climate within your industry, within your city. And this is a fun fact, that in 2015, bed and breakfasts in Alberta had average revenues of $135,000, 77 were profitable, 23 were not. So it might be a good industry to get into. So with your target market, it's understanding who's most likely to be your customer and who is your ideal customer. Getting to know their age, their gender, their income, their occupation, marital status, geographic, ethnicity, language, hobbies and interests. The list goes on and on. This can really be fleshed out a lot more than that. And then with business, your industry size, number of employees, annual sales, and geographic location as well. Keep in mind, you could be both of your business could be both B2C and B2B. It does not necessarily only have to be one. A lot of the time it is not one. Business to consumer or business to business. So like a cleaning service, for example, they could have that ongoing revenue stream of having contracts with places like University of Lethbridge, right? They're coming in every night, they're cleaning, and they're getting paid on a monthly basis. They have that contract. Whereas they could also be doing homes as well, where that they would do, someone could call them just for one job, or some of them could call for a weekly service or monthly. The list goes on, right? So knowing your your income that is generating on a regular basis, so those subscriptions are really key. The different ways in which those revenue streams are coming in. And that's why that business model canvas is really important, to build out that, to see, oh, okay, well, I can have, those monthly contracts that I have with businesses. I could have those one-time sales that I'm only doing, that one contract with that one customer. Another fun fact, that in 2014, 34.7 million in-person visits were made to Alberta, and Albertan residents made up 86% of those visits. And that make sense to everybody because it didn't make sense to me when I first read it. I did not know what that meant. But does it make sense? Or not?
Nope.
No? Okay, good. I'm glad I'm not the only one because I was like, I don't understand that. Basically, it means that the 34.7 million person visits were all made up by Albertans. So that's like myself coming down to Lethbridge from Calgary, or myself going to Edmonton from Calgary, or yourself going, so it's those in-person. So like basically 86% of kind of our hospitality and tourism industry is made up by Albertans, fellow Albertans. So that's something interesting to know, because when we're in the hospitality and tourism industry, we often think we're bringing in tourists from outside of province, from United States, from Europe, from Asia, from all over, right? But really, when you get down to the nitty-gritty, it's basically us moving within our own province.
Would you have more up-to-date information than 2014 in your?
Nope, that's the most up-to-date we have from albertacanada.com. Yeah. Unfortunately. So some of it is still old, right? But what you can do is see what the growth would be based on the old information. So if we have statistics from 2014, we can then take into consideration the population growth, and then we can narrow it down based on the target market of that population growth, and then build it out from there. Instead of now being a $1.1 billion industry, it's now a $1.125 billion industry because the population growth was 3% in the last 3 years or whatever, right? So you can get, if you want to be very specific, you could do that. So knowing if you're business to consumer or business to business or both, looking at consumer information, there is, of course, the Canada Census and the National Household Survey will give you demographic and socioeconomic data. The Calgary Census, again, the Lethbridge Census, or whichever, I believe Lethbridge County has their own census as well. Everybody has a census, so just finding the one that's pertinent to your area, or all of Alberta, whatever, or all of Canada, whatever that may be. And then the community profile section, again, will give you the demographic and socioeconomic data. Calgary Open Data is, I'm not sure if there's a counterpart for this, but I believe there is in Lethbridge. There will give information on citizens of the city or city programs, which may be of use for you in your target market. So you may need to know how many, if you're in the business of selling swimming goggles, you may need to want to know how many people are signed up for swimming lessons in the city of Lethbridge. How many people utilize the city of Lethbridge's recreational services specifically for swimming, so you can target them to sell your swimming goggles. And the Calgary Economic Development will give you information on potential customers by industry, as well the Lethbridge Economic Development Choose Lethbridge information, and the Lethbridge Census I included there as well. Again, I'm aware that there are people that are remote and not all, but start out from there and see if there's something akin to your area. If not, then utilize what is provided there. So some resources here. Now, number one, I wouldn't necessarily, let me see what time I'm at for time. 15 minutes? Okay. I would not necessarily recommend that you send out flyers or postcards to a wide range of like all of Lethbridge or all of Calgary. First off, I don't think anyone can afford that. It costs a lot of money to do that. Secondly, how many people look at those flyers? How many people in this room look at the flyers that you get from your snail mail? You do, okay? One person, another one, couple, somewhat, yeah. So what I do, maybe you guys are the same, I'll grab my mail. I have one of those mailboxes that's across the street from my house. I grab my mail, I look at my mail. By the time I reach my door, if nothing catches my interest, it's in my recycling bin. So they get from the walk from across the street from my mailbox to my front door to catch my attention. And if it's not a coupon, it's probably not coming in my house. So that's the only way that they're going to market to me. And that they cost a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to do it. If you look at real estate agents, they always send you like really thick cardstock postcards, or they'll send you those flippy notepads and things like that. Cost tons of money to make, tons of money to send it out to you, and 90% of the time probably ends up in a recycling bin anyway. Waste of money, right? So I wouldn't really recommend that. But I would recommend that you utilize Canada Post Precision Targeter, because this will hone in on a specific area code. So look at a zip code, an area code, and it will say who is in that area code. And should you then be sending snail mail or any type of marketing material in the mail to that zip code. And I'll be honest, a lot of people that for phone calls, like telemarketing or trying to market your business on the phone itself or through mail, or through the newspaper even, should be your elderly population. Those are the people that are still reading the newspaper, they're still answering the phone when people call, and they're still looking at every piece of mail. But this new generation, and my generation and younger, and even older than me, we're not looking at that, right? Time is money for us. Convenience, no, it's not important. We also want to save the world and we want to recycle. So we're going to throw everything in our recycling bin. But this is going to help you really focus in on those zip codes. I keep saying the American version, but to tell you who lives in that area. So if there's a huge population of elderly individuals in that area code, then send snail mail to them. Canism will give you expenditure trends on various products and services for Canada or Alberta. Prism is one of my favorites. It's really cool. It'll look at insights into behavior and mindsets of consumers, and it is searchable by your postal code. So you can go in and just type in your postal code, and it will spit out a actual a kind of acute demographic of your area. So I think my area that I live in, they gave me a nickname of PCs and lap dogs, something along those lines. And I was, it was 25 to 37-year-old target market or majority population between this income and this income, this amount of kids, what the ethnicity breakdown of the area postal code is. So it's cool. Look at your postal code there. And then BDC always has some really interesting stuff. They have 5 game-changing consumer trends and a lot of details on recent consumer trends overall. In 2016, the average expenditure per household in Alberta on accommodation away from home, making up that 86% of in Alberta visits, was just over $1,000. Some more information for business. You can look at, again, Economic Development Calgary and Economic Development Lethbridge. You can look at Canadian company capabilities. Again, searchable by NAICS code, so that NAICS code is important. Chamber of Commerce, the BBB websites can give you some information as well. I'm not going to go off on a tangent on BBB, but they're there as well. And then also Statistics Canada Business Register will give you business location counts by employment size and NAICS code. In June 2017, there were 140 bed and breakfasts in Alberta, and we've seen 77% of them were profitable, with $173,000 in revenue averaging throughout all of those 140. Some online resources that you can look at, of course, social media of any kind. You can utilize so many different types of surveys that are out there. You can follow your competitors' pages. I'd actually definitely encourage you to. I would encourage you to also reach out to your competitors, more so if they're indirect, more so if they are Calgary-based and you're in Lethbridge, or Edmonton-based and you're in Red Deer, right? To see some information, because a lot of the time entrepreneurs are very willing and able to share as much information with you as possible because they want you to succeed as well. They don't want you to fail. They'd much rather help you, especially if you're removed from them and you're not their direct competition. So we did have somebody at Business Link who wanted to start a really cool, quirky, unique dog sitting business or doggy daycare type of business. None of them were in Canada yet. She found 3 in the United States. I think one was in Houston, one in somewhere in the New York state, and one in somewhere in California. And she ended up contacting all of them. Every single one of them said, "This is wonderful, we're so happy you're doing it. Here's my business plan." So she got 3 fully completed business plans from her indirect competition in the United States. She basically started a brand new business plan on what she already had, plus all of the other stuff that she did, all of her other work. And then she made a trip down to each, when she was established, down to each of her indirect competitors, had a visit with them, came back, did her taxes, and wrote it off as a business expense, right? So I would definitely encourage you to make those connections and relationships as much as possible with your indirect competitors and even your direct competitors. Your trend compilation websites that are out there, looking at the different types of trends in technology and innovation and different types of products, Springwise, Trend Hunter, Trend Watching, and Product Hunt. There is, of course, different types of crowdfunding campaigns and boosters, like ATB Booster. And if everybody's aware of them, they have an entrepreneur center here now. So that ATB Booster will be coming around pretty quick, maybe, or maybe it just passed. But that's something to keep on your radars as well. And then, of course, Google's doing some cool stuff, right? They're doing trends and alerts, Google Docs. If you have a Gmail account, you can change your @Gmail to @your business name for, I think it's like $5 a month, somewhere around there. So it looks better, right, for marketing to have holly@iphone.com than holly@gmail.com. As if I invented iPhone. As if I'd be here right now if I invented iPhone, right? It's just the first thing I seen when I looked up. So this is what we do at Business Link. I'll try to get through this quick. I might have to go a little over. This is 11:25, so I might have to do this for about 10, maybe 15. So industry information, we look at Ipsos World, which looks at Canada and the US. It gives us industry summary reports, again by NAICS code. So when you do fill out your secondary market research client questionnaire, if you would like market research conducted by us, please indicate your NAICS code on it, because it makes our research team find all of the relevant information and not guess a NAICS code for you. So find your NAICS code, and we can find stuff on Ipsos World. Euromonitor Passport, which gives us consumer product industry overviews, news, trends, and financial statistics. It's searchable by keyword. And then First Research gives us US and sometimes Canadian industry profiles and reports, again by NAICS code. So this is some information we just pulled on in May 2016 for a full-service restaurant in Canada. It gives us those key statistics snapshots. We can see that it has that revenue of just over exactly $27 billion. The growth rate, the expected growth rate, how many businesses are in full-service restaurants in Canada, so just over 36,000 restaurants. How much money is spent in wages for full-service restaurants, and how much profit is actually made. So not necessarily revenue, but profit from the restaurants. And then it breaks it down for Ipsos World. It shows the product and services segmentation of the types of full-service restaurants in Canada. So you can see that the majority of our restaurants in Canada are Asian restaurants at 35.8%. And also keeping in mind, this is not just considering like Chinese food and Eastern Asian types, it's also Western Asia as well, so it's encompassing all of Asia into that 35.8%. But the least amount is at 2.6% Mexican restaurants. So it gives that kind of break. So if I was to open a restaurant, I'd probably want to go in kind of the Mexican restaurant, maybe a seafood or a steakhouse, because those are the least amount. I don't have a lot of competition there. But that's just me. Maybe that's not you. Full service restaurants in Canada will give you an industry information passport from Euromonitor. It just tells you that just some forecasts within the area, what type of trends that they're seeing, what kind of new news was happening. This was back in 2016 when that Earl's fiasco happened, and they said, we're not buying Canadian or Albertan beef anymore, we're going organic, so we're going across the US. And everyone said, boycott, we're not doing it, we like our Alberta beef. And then they honed back really quickly and said, okay, we're back in Alberta, sorry, forget that ever happened. So that just let them know basically that don't do that. And that's that industry profile for that. The industry overview for from First Research gives more of a global kind of outlook. So it looks at any of the companies, the major players. So it does say that like places like Darden restaurants are all based in the US. Cara Operations is our conglomerate in Canada, Restaurant Group in UK, and Skylark in Japan. It gives a total of $3 trillion annually worldwide, according to Euromonitor. Asia Pacific region, North America and Western Europe are the largest food service markets. US full service restaurants industry includes casual restaurants, comprises more than 230,000 establishments within the US. So lots of information there. This just gives you more information on Cara, on the Cedar original, and that they acquired Original Joe's as well. Now, consumer information, we look at Canada Census and National Household Survey, Calgary Census Community Profiles, Calgary Open Data, again, if anything is akin to other areas, and then Economic Development Calgary. So these will give you all that demographic and socioeconomic data and information. Some more Canada Post-Precision Targeter, more BDC stuff. And P-Census is one of the databases that we use for consumer information, and it gives you demographic and household expenditures. It's available by postal code, city, or province, and it can find information by drive time or mile radius from a specific address. These will give you a lot more information here on this side.
We have to keep.
Yeah.
It's nice that you've got it, and then
Yeah,
you can look it
it's
up
there,
later.
and you guys can look at it after, but I can't open all
I'm
of it.
rushing here, sorry.
No, that's okay. This is just a snapshot of what we can pull from our P-Census. So we can look at T5J is a postal code in Edmonton, downtown Edmonton, and we can see the population, how it's broken down, what the estimate is going to be in 2016 and then 2019, and then the population change in that time frame. And then it will break it down even further for where they're spending their expenditures at. So all of these are based on food, on day trips, food purchases from restaurants, and then even further down into, this is something that was pulled for one of our clients who was opening a physiotherapy restaurant, a physiotherapy practice, there we go, in the T2K area of Calgary, which is northwest Calgary. And so they found all the healthcare information on where people are spending their money in T2K. That's where he wanted to open. Competitor and business information, we use Hoover's and Reference Canada, both searchable by NAICS code again. This will give you a rundown of your competitor information. If you're in the restaurant industry, these are some of your competitors based out of Edmonton. It shows you who the owner or director or proprietor, general manager, whatever name they want to give themselves, their phone number, how much revenue they've made in US dollars in the millions, how many employees they have, total and at that location. So it goes into really specific details, right? So we can find that for you, definitely. And this is that client example again. He was expanding his business. He found his value proposition that he wanted to focus on target market of stroke victims. So he wanted to specialize in that area. And we found the information from the software from P-Census for those that he indicated, postal codes that he wanted, and then the surrounding areas, and then also his competitor information. We gave him all of the offices of physical, occupational, and speech therapists and audiologists within the postal code areas, and then the Physiotherapy Alberta College and Association, the tools that they use as well. And then it goes on. So I'll let you guys look at that, and just know that we're there to help with that. This is what it came up with, the competitor information through Hoover's. Very pointed, right? It's not giving every single physiotherapist in all of Calgary. It's giving it specific for the area that he is wanting to start and expand that practice, which was in that area. And so they found everything in the surroundings. And so now, what's next? Okay, so depending on your industry, we will be able to find information. If it's very unique, innovative, brand new, we might not be able to find specific because it doesn't exist, but we'll find the most relevant for you. We'll look at all the databases that we have. We'll pull as much information as possible. We'll give it to you. We'll tell you maybe where you can look for more if you don't already know. And we'll give you all the links. We won't give you the analysis. That's up to you. It's also up to you to work with us. If you want an analysis of it and you really want to know how to utilize it, we can work with you to figure that out and how to input that into your business plan. We're not just going to give you a bunch of information and say, see you later. That's not what we want to do. We really want to see you succeed in every way. We want to know the details. What town or city will it be operating from? What products will you be selling? Where will you be selling to? Who is your competition? Who is most likely to buy your products? And what is the information for a specific reason? What have you already done for research? And you don't even it will ask you for your top 3 competitors. So just, top 3 competitors, who you think your top 3 competitors are, just so our research team knows that you know who your competitors are. Maybe you don't know that somebody else is out there that is actually a bigger competition than you thought. That is our research at businesslink.ca, and we have a question.
The question is, can they utilize PC Census on their own, or is it one of the databases that you pay for?
Yeah, PC Census, they was asked if they can utilize it on their own or if we had to pay for it. PC Census is one of the ones that we belong to as with our, what is it called? Paid subscription. Yeah, there we go. It's late, and I gotta go home. It's 7:30. It's not even that late, but we'll do our best to get it back to you in 7 business days. But research at businesslink.ca. Penny will have the questionnaire for you. Feel free to reach out to myself or anyone at BusinessLink to help you answer those questions even more. You can email askus@businesslink.ca. I'll leave business cards of my own up front, so if you'd like to take some. Also connect with our BusinessLink News Connector. We don't spam you. We'll just send you like once a month kind of information newsletter on what we do and what's coming up. We hope you go on our webinars and learn more information. Is there anyone in the audience that had a specific question before we end? Okay, well, thank you very much for having me. I hope it was helpful.
I'm sorry to have rushed you.
That's okay. Thank you.
Everybody here okay? Erin Crane and Mike Rousseau from Economic Development Lethbridge. Thank you.
That was so nice, but usually I can overtalk anybody in the room. Hello again, everybody. I'm Erin. This is Mike. We are here from Economic Development Lethbridge. I look after the investment attraction portfolio. Mike is our market intelligence advisor. So we're here tonight. Holly did a fantastic job getting all of that very overarching view. Hopefully you all aren't scared to death at this point, but we're going to kind of bring it in a little bit and talk to you about the Lethbridge view of that. That is primarily what Mike and I look at. So we're going to tag team a little bit here. So you'll get a little bit from me, a little bit from Mike. I'll talk to you a little bit about who we are, what we do. Mike's going to go through data integrity, as we like to call it, and tell you about where the stats come from. He'll be referencing probably a lot of the stuff Holly talked about. Then we're going to look at local resources, because there's a lot of organizations that do kind of what we do, and I know many of you aren't from the Lethbridge area, so our Lethbridge information may not be relevant to you, but there's a lot out there that you can actually find. Then Mike's going to go through some business information and go through our dashboard and give you some real life stats and kind of go through some of that can hopefully tie directly to your businesses. And then we'll close it out and toss you a little lifeline, because there are some fantastic resources and organizations that are out there that are here to help you, right? Holly is one of them. We work very closely with BusinessLink. We do operate Tech Connect, and BusinessLink is a big partner of ours. They do all kinds of one-on-one coming down for Ask Me Anything sessions, you name it. So we'll start off the bat with our mission in action statement. I am not going to read this to you, but basically We are the support system. We are going to be your first follower out there if you need it. We also are the community collaborator. We connect you to the things that you need in the community. I'm not saying that we know everything, because goodness gracious, we sure don't. But if you call and you need something, we will have the information to get you to where you need to go. And then lastly, we are the proactive advocate. Basically, we are your cheerleaders. So come and tell us what you're doing, and we'll do what we can to help you out. We actually look after 6 different key areas. One is business retention and expansion, investment attraction, entrepreneurship and innovation, which is why we are here tonight, to kind of help walk you through some of this stuff. We do marketing and advocacy. We also look after some of the catalytic projects that are happening in Lethbridge. For example, the airport, things like agri-food corridors, and it's the bucket of work that we never know what's going to fall into it. It's kind of the ad hoc stuff that comes. And then, as all organizations and businesses should look after, we definitely focus on operational excellence. So that is what we do, and I will pass it over to Mike.
All right, so I know that a lot of people out here probably feel kind of like Holly did when she described her enthusiasm for data, which is to say, not particularly enthusiastic. I myself find it very enjoyable and interesting, so I'll try and make this as enjoyable as I possibly can. If it's something you're dreading, hopefully we can turn it into a positive experience. So a few things I want to focus on. One of them is data integrity. Of course, always using data that you feel is high quality and tells the best possible story, but also keeping in mind that data is always just part of the story, not your entire story, okay? And I'll try and use a few examples to characterize what I mean by that here shortly. Also, I think it's important to point out that information is always more of a mosaic, and that there is no magic bullet indicator that's going to clarify everything for you. You can't look at one piece of information and ever assume you know a lot about an overall population or area. Again, it requires a lot of work and diligence in looking at a variety of indicators before you can really feel good about something, data-wise. Of course, I also think it's important to make sure you understand what data is saying. That may seem self-evident, but again, I'll try and go over an example or two to indicate how sometimes that is not the case. Using comparisons when it comes to data is always something that I find helpful. Otherwise, it's just a piece of information, and using comparisons is something that really helps contextualize your information. And then finally, do not make assumptions. I think that's something else that's really important when we're going over data. So again, data integrity, what we're talking about there is where data comes from, for the most part here, and what geography it actually covers. So here we've got Stats Canada, Municipal Census, other. Let's say, for example, we're looking at the population of Lethbridge. It sounds like something that's straightforward, right? There must be a fixed number that's correct that we can all agree upon. Well, as it turns out, yes and no, actually. So the city of Lethbridge conducts an annual census. Many of you might have answered some of their paperwork at some point in time or responded to one of their census takers. And they do that every year. They also do that in March, which again sounds trivial, but you'll see quickly why it's not. So currently the population of Lethbridge is 99,769, and that's as of 2018. If you were to try and corroborate that information on a Stats Canada website, you would see a different number. As it turns out, they haven't provided a population update for us since their most recent census, which was released in early 2017, as far as the information released to the public. They still quote a population of 92,000 for that year, roughly. Critically, they actually ask for data to be taken for their census count in May. So what might cause a fluctuation if you sampled Lethbridge population in May versus March? Correct. Pretty big fluctuation, as it turns out, right? So if we look at the population for Lethbridge in 2016, we see it's 96,828. Stats Canada, of course, is quoting roughly 92,000, 4,000 fewer people. Might that impact your business? It just might, especially if those people are, again, in that kind of 15 to 24 or 20 to 30 age range. So it's important to know exactly what the source is and what it's measuring. Furthermore, you could even turn to private sources like Environics or other market research bodies who would probably quote you a different number. And that is usually not methodology that's made public, so you've kind of got to assume that they know what they're up to. But if you're trying to quote that information or you want to feel really confident in what you're using, you probably want to turn to, in this case, the City of Lethbridge, because you know that they do this on an annual basis, and that you're going to get the most current information that's possible and probably corroborated with a high degree of accuracy. So that's one example where something like this comes into play. There are more actually though, so just to illustrate a few other quick ones. Population growth is another one that sounds really obvious. So after the last census, when Stats Canada released their data, they had a news release that suggested Lethbridge was the 5th fastest growing city in the country. So that sounds pretty impressive, right? But hold on there. Remember when I said we have to be sure we know what our measures are? Well, what exactly is a city? So it turned out their qualification was something called the Census Metropolitan Area. So that only includes cities with a population of 100,000 or more, right? So if you're looking through data and you see, wait a minute, Grand Prairie grew by 13% between 2011 and 2016, I thought Lethbridge is one of the top 5 cities. I'm seeing Calgary, Edmonton, Saskatoon, Regina, Grand Prairie. Well, I thought Lethbridge was in the top 5, right? But Grand Prairie, as it turns out, is what's called a census agglomeration, which means its population is between 10 and 100,000. So it's not included in that same kind of sample that Lethbridge was measured in when we were declared one of the 5 fastest growing cities, right? So it sounds like a trivial piece of information. Wow, a CMA, a CA is a 1-letter difference, probably means about the same thing. No, it doesn't. And you're gonna get different results if you pay attention, or you're gonna get different results depending on the measure that you're looking at. So again, be sure you understand what those are. Housing starts, housing prices, those are other ones. The other day, there was coverage that came out in the news about real estate prices for cities across the country. As it turns out, that information generally comes from what are called real estate boards, which cover districts. So there's one here in Lethbridge called the Lethbridge District Association of Realtors, and that covers a vast swath of area in and around Lethbridge. You'll see their average house prices for all transactions in that district are listed at $261,000. So you might think, okay, so that's a good proxy for real estate prices here. But not necessarily, because as it turns out within their information, you see that there's Lethbridge City, which would just constitute our boundary, and that the cost for real estate there is roughly $40,000 more than it would be, which is a pretty substantial percentage difference, right? So you've got to be careful when you're trying to make those assumptions that you're getting the entire story. And I could go on. There are a multitude of different examples where this is the case. Everything from building permits to labor force stats usually requires some degree of investigation to confirm the information and the terms that you're looking into, and to corroborate that it really is the information you're seeking. So one example that we like to use recently, one that's pretty fun, you may not that fun, depending on your perspective. Lethbridge received some rather dubious attention a short while ago for being named one of the most dangerous cities in Canada, number 3 actually, by Maclean's in a magazine headline that came out and kind of made the newswire back in November. So you might see this and think, boy, yeah, it either maybe confirms what you think you know, or you think, boy, that's not exactly great news. Where am I here? Maybe I picked the wrong city, right? Okay, but hold on. So what exactly do you think they're measuring here when they say most dangerous place? Because when I see something like that, I think, wow, my chances of being attacked must be pretty high. You know, I'm questioning my safety standards. Maybe I need to take added precaution. Actually, as it turns out, they were simply measuring a Stats Canada table called the Crime Severity Index, and the difference between that measure in 2017 and 2012. So that index tracks all crime, not just serious crime, all crime. So if you dig further into those stats, you find out that the vast majority of the difference and why Lethbridge had a higher rating in 2017 than 2012 in the Crime Severity Index was due to a real uptick in fraud, breaking and entering, and theft under $5,000. Are those pleasant crimes? Absolutely not. Do those make you cower in fear? Not necessarily, right? So it's important to pay attention to what these variables are again and what you're actually measuring. If you look into it and you looked at the sub-index that is in fact called the violent severity index, you would see that Lethbridge is in the low 30s among all jurisdictions in Canada. So okay, maybe still not as great as we want to be, but certainly not the third most dangerous place. Furthermore, if you change the reference year, and now you're not measuring 2017 versus 2012, we wouldn't have been third either, right? So there's a lot of factors you have to pay attention to when you're trying to tease out the credibility of data and whether or not you're actually getting a good, accurate measure and really objectively confirming what you think you know. Another, and just, a few more quick ones that come to mind. You might see headlines that say, sunniest places in Canada, Lethbridge, one of the top 3 sunniest places. Great. So should we plan on an influx of snowbirds anytime soon? No, maybe not, right? Because of course it doesn't take into account temperature and a host of other variables. What about the best place to live in Canada? We see this list every year. This is always a fun one for me. So last year Lethbridge ranked low on this list. Well, guess what was one of the factors holding us back? Crime. And we just went over the fact that that's kind of a sham, the way it's portrayed anyways, right? Not to try and minimize any sort of criminal instance at all, but yeah, these are the kind of things you want to look at when you're really trying to confirm information that may seem obvious.
So the moral of the story there is that if you have any questions, reach out, because there is some help out there for you. So one of the things I want to talk about is local resources. So we do really focus on Lethbridge, but we do work with partners in the region, and some of those are the Regional Economic Development Alliances. So Lethbridge sits in the middle of 2. We've got Southwest Alberta Regional Economic Development Alliance, which is basically everything to the west of us, leading over into the Crow's Nest Pass. So if you're from Claresholm or Pincher Creek or Blairmore, right, that you can reach out to the Alberta Southwest Regional Economic Development Alliance, and they do have some stats specific to those smaller towns. Right, as Holly was going through her presentation, right, there was a lot of stuff there around Alberta. And as Mike mentioned, between the CAs and the CMAs, sometimes that information is hard to drill down for smaller areas. So Lethbridge even falls within that, right? Can you imagine, a small town like, Blairmore?
Turin.
Right, yeah, exactly, Turin, I lived in Lowman for a while. Most people couldn't even find it on a map. Much less, how do you find the stats for a town of 150 people, right? But they are out there, and those agencies can help you find that information. And we do work collectively together as a region, and even some of that regional information is there for you. One of the other examples I put up here is South Grow, which basically covers everything east of us. So if you're from Vulcan or Tabor or McGrath, right? They'll be able to help you out and find that specific information into those smaller areas. And then also give you a good regional look at what that looks like. I put up here city websites. City of Lethbridge, of course, is a great resource. But not only that, those town councils and the town administrators in some of those small towns are great resources. They usually all have planning departments. We like to know what's going on in the community, and small businesses are big businesses in a lot of these smaller areas, right? One of the stats on our website is that 52% of the businesses in Lethbridge have less than 4 employees, right? So really, you guys as entrepreneurs and small businesses, you are the backbone of every community. And that's has a lot of power, and people are here to help you. Mike talked about LDAR. I've got it here under industry associations. So once you kind of know your NAICS code, right, as Holly mentioned, and you know some of the industries that are out there, look at those, because they're great information, for some of that specific data that you're looking for, right? Whether it's, hotels or restaurants or, real estate, right? They've got some of that specific information that can help you out. All right, back over to Mike. Here comes the nitty-gritty stuff.
All right, so I am going to pull our website here up just as an example and run through a few quick ideas. So I'm not sure how many of you have been to this site before, but it's chooselethbridge.ca. And here's our market data section. So just to kind of follow up with what Holly said before, there are lots of sources of information. Certainly, I utilize Stats Canada and Industry Canada on a frequent basis, and I also really would highly vouch for the Alberta Regional Dashboard. It's a great product, and there is a lot of info out there, depending on what you're looking for. We try not to duplicate too much information on our site. So most of what you see here involves us doing some calculation and breaking things down with a specific focus on the city of Lethbridge. And generally speaking, the information you see here won't be portrayed this way elsewhere. So that's how we think we add value to some of these kind of figures. So I was asked to think through a few examples of some different scenarios with regards to various businesses and how they might interact with this kind of data or use some of this kind of information. So with that in mind, and keeping in mind what I said before about data being a mosaic more than just a singular point of entry, let's start with retail. Let's say I'm looking to start some sort of business here. Maybe I'm looking to sell yo-yos, who knows? Okay, so first, what am I going to look at? Well, I might want to take a look at what the population is. Pretty critical one, right? If you see a population that's large and increasing, you see a target market that's potentially there anyways, and your odds of finding the consumers you're looking for is going to be greater the higher the population is, generally speaking, in an area, unless there are other factors. All other things being considered equal, though, a high population is generally a good thing, and a growing one is also a good sign of a healthy area. So if I were a retailer, maybe I'd start right there. Then, what else do I want to know? Okay, well, I want to know where I'm going to set up shop. Where am I going to be within the city? Okay, so then I would look into population by region. Okay, so this is interesting. I'm seeing growth across the city, but I'm also seeing outsized growth in West Lethbridge. Oh, that's interesting. Well, maybe I want to take a closer look there. Or maybe I can't find a spot there and I think, okay, well, those 5-year numbers in the north are pretty good too. Maybe I'll take a look at what rents there are and opportunities there. Either way, you probably want to get some idea of what populations are in various components of the city. Next, maybe I want to take a look at population by age. Maybe I think, okay, so I'm probably selling to a younger demographic. That's in line with the background research I've already done on my product and the most likely consumers, and I've validated this already. I feel good about that, so I know that my target market is the 10 to 19 group. Okay, so we're seeing pretty solid growth in that population segment, so I'm feeling pretty good again about my chances here of succeeding if I'm targeting this group specifically within this city. Maybe then I want to look at, well, what else do I want to see? I want to see total income. I want to see how much do people have enough money here, perhaps, to pay for the product I'm offering. Do I feel good about my chances, or should I seek a different market? Okay, well, within Alberta, I see maybe I'm not in the most affluent market that there is, but within a national confines, it looks pretty good. So I think, okay, this is still a pretty sufficient proposition for me here right now. Then finally, maybe I want to take a look at real estate stats, and I want to say, okay, hold on. I know I'm a retailer. How much can I expect to pay if I actually want to set up shop? What's the going rate, per se, for a commercial retail office in Lethbridge right now? So I could take a look at the graph, and that's actually July through September, so Q3 of last year, and that's what I can expect to pay. If I were looking to buy a place, and if I were looking to lease, I can expect to pay roughly $20 per square foot. So again, this just gives you some of that contextual information in the event that you were looking to set up, and now you've got a lot more to go on. So what if I were, instead of being a retailer, let's say I'm a consulting company, and I'm offering some sort of specific information that is a little more nuanced, okay? So my target population is not as big, but where do I want to start? I probably still want to look at my population, because I still want to get a sense of how big it is. Maybe I know a ratio that there are, I'm likely to obtain one customer for every 1,000 people who are there. something along those lines. So it still gives me a gauge and an idea of what my overall market size and opportunity is. Next, maybe I want to take a look at the total number of licensed businesses in Lethbridge. Maybe this would give me an idea. Okay, so I know I'm a relatively niche organization compared to others. 5,700 businesses here though. Some of them, a fraction, let's say 10%, could potentially use my services. Good. Now again, I'm building a case. I'm starting to understand what my overall market size is here and what my potential could be. Then maybe I want to get into something different. Again, we've already been over income and even real estate stats. But maybe I want to take a look at, okay, who are my biggest potential clients? If I were trying to sell to someone, where would I go? Well, maybe it would help if I had an idea of who our major employers were, right? And I'd say, oh, okay, perfect. Covenant Health is in the area. Excellent. Well, if I'm a healthcare consultant, great. I've got them as a potential customer. It's not to say it's a sure thing, but hey, I've also got AHS leading the charge, and maybe they're looking to outsource some of their consulting too. Good. So I'm starting to understand again a little more about the landscape in the local area. Finally, maybe I want to take a look at labor force distribution by industry. And this is an approximate for how many people work in these kind of sectors. So I think, okay, awesome. It seems like there's a fairly substantial healthcare presence. Maybe there's a fair bit of opportunity in that area. Or, okay, only 5% of the population appear to work in agriculture. Doesn't sound that high, but it's higher than it would be in other comparative jurisdictions. So even though it still makes up a relatively small component of the population, the opportunities here for that line of work might be greater than they would be elsewhere. So what about if I were a tech company? Well, again, this is kind of like beating a dead horse at this point, but I probably want to look at my population and see whether or not there is a sizable market for what I'm looking to sell and just ensure that we're seeing healthy growth and I feel good about the area I'm moving into. But after that, what do I want to look at? Well, we know that for that sector specifically, labor is a pretty critical component, and that labor can be pretty hard to come by for people who are trying to get into the tech game. Programmers aren't everywhere, everyone's after them. So I want to make sure that we have lots of people who can do what we need to do for our business. So maybe I take a look at the University of Lethbridge degrees granted by year, and I try and corroborate and confirm and say, okay, I feel pretty good here about our chances of finding the employment we need to thrive and survive here. Or maybe I check the college as well and see that, okay, there's quite a few grads from the CIT program who could potentially work for me and help build my product here. On top of that, maybe I'm interested in local tax rates. Maybe I'm also interested in median total income if I'm trying to sell to individuals. Or if I'm trying to sell to business, maybe I'm interested again in that labor force distribution by industry sector. I want to see how many people are working in various sectors, maybe where I should kind of curtail or not curtail, but design my product around, where its chances to flourish would be highest. And then again, maybe I look at major employers list and I think, okay, so if I'm in auto consulting, this Davis group here in Lethbridge appears to be pretty big according to this list. So maybe I'll reach out to them before I go anywhere else, because if I get them, then I know I've already got a major employer here who's going to be a good source of steady income for me for a while. So those are some of the ways that I would utilize this kind of information if I were an entrepreneur looking for data and looking to confirm information about Lethbridge. And again, a lot of the info you see here won't necessarily mirror information you would see elsewhere. We think it adds a little more customization. Here's our building permit summary, for example. So this is going to break down total new building permit values based on different subsectors, and we break out the total for each year. If you were to look at Stats Canada data for this same area, you would not get the city information, but the wider census agglomeration info. So again, most of the information we have, that's just an example, but most of the info we have here on this site is supposed to be a little more nuanced and highlight some particulars about Lethbridge that you might find a little harder to find or a little more work to put together if you were trying to look for it on your own. So I would highly encourage taking a look at that if you have the time or feel inclined.
Before you get out of there,
Sure.
Oh my gosh, I am so sorry. I had these lovely little booklets that I was going to bring for all of you tonight, and I totally forgot them because, of course, it's late. But one of the things I wanted to show you here on the website, if you are trying to present your data and you need some ways to talk about it within your business plan, here under Media and Publications, you will find under Publications some of the studies that we have done, and this Bright Choice magazine for economic diversity is what I was supposed to bring for you, but you can go on and you can print it out. And this is a bit more of a story that talks about the data in the area, right?
You did send it to me, and it's on the shared Google Drive, and it's actually on there if you want to.
There you go. So sorry you don't get, lovely hard copies.
Repeat it. It's in the-
Penny did say to tell all of you Zoomers that it is on the Google
Shared Drive.
So you can find it on there as well. But again, it gives you some wording on how to talk about these things, right? Talking about the vibrant economy, right? Talking about the business structure, talking about entrepreneurship, right? Why reinvent the wheel when you're going through this and you're trying to add these things into your business plan? You've got some templates here on how to present that information, so use it, right? We go into talking about bright people and, gives you some good data like that, so. Sorry, I just had to jump in there because I totally forgot.
That's
that
okay.
I forgot to bring
So I have a question.
Sure.
If you were trying to find information on a specific, say, healthcare sector, number of people that just through diabetes and have diabetes in Southern Alberta or Lethbridge, how would you find that information? Where would be the best place to look?
Can you repeat the question?
So we had a question about if we were looking for healthcare information in Southern Alberta, specifically diabetes in this case, where we would go to look for this kind of info. So if it were me, I would first of all, some of that information can be a bit touchy. There's an element of confidentiality that's often involved in that kind of thing. So some of that information is always going to be a little harder to procure. But if I were starting, I would probably check the AHS website, see what I could find, and then also go on the Alberta Regional Dashboard. They actually have a fair amount of fairly nuanced indicators along those lines that you might want to check first. And then from there might be industry associations that can also help out. Certainly like the Crohn's and Colitis organization would have figures specific to some of those kind of things in many cases. So yeah, you might, so if it was like Crohn's, for example, not diabetes, but they would probably have a decent idea of the number of people within this area that might be afflicted with something along those lines.
As far as I know, there is a society for
Another good one to check with would be Lethbridge Family Services, right? So they would be able to connect you to some of those. Even if there wasn't a local one, there might be a regional one that they could get you to that might help provide some of that information. And like Mike said, even though it's not the same, sometimes when you have similarities and you can draw those parallels, that really kind of helps support that case as well. And then it gives you that opportunity to say, hey, maybe there's a gap within the marketplace for that information, which then supports your business plan even further. Good question. Anybody else? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Just
Okay,
kidding.
I have one, so I spent all day on this thing. How do I go about finding the areas of Lethbridge where there's a greater population of families between the ages 30 to 40?
So there is a
Two-income family.
So we had a question with regards to how to find the components of Lethbridge with two-income families and a population with an age of between 30 to 40, I take it?
30 and 40.
Yeah?
I got trying to narrow it down, like, okay, how many are in West Lethbridge, North, and South?
So I would start there, just off the top of my head, with the city census, and I would see what I could find from that information. They have some fairly detailed info that they get into. Then from there, I would probably check Stats Canada, and even though it's lagged data at this point, their census still has background info. It's kind of finicky to get at it, but they'll break down the city into what are called census tracts, and those will align with large blocks within various parts of the city, right? So they might have like block 1 might more or less be Southgate, and they're not going to have the same boundaries as the city neighborhoods, but they're going to be pretty close approximations. And usually within those census tracts, you can still obtain information on some of those indicators. But the more nuanced the information is, the harder it can be and likely will be to confirm, right? So if you were to add to that, oh, and I also want multi-generational families that are living together still with this average age, it gets trickier yet, right? So the more niche the information you're seeking, generally speaking, it's correlated with being much trickier to find than something that might be more applicable to a wider component of the population. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I understand what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Okay.
I found the information, I just don't want to be adding up all of those numbers in every
Well,
city.
Yeah, that's all part of the fun, right? Yeah.
Because the census page has it all spent right out.
But they won't break it down to the level that you want it, essentially.
Well, I'll have to add up every little number. But there is an area in the Lethbridge site, their dashboard talks about those tracts. I can't seem to get it to work.
Would you be willing to give him some assistance later?
Well,
Potentially.
Yeah,
Yeah, see what we can do.
yeah. We'll
Or
chat after.
businessman, or
Yeah.
businessman, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to speed through this a little bit because Penny's standing here pushing us along. But if any of this has kind of glazed over, or you think, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get this, maybe y'all are pros by now. But there are some support systems out there, right? So this is kind of our Lethbridge entrepreneurial ecosystem, right, between Penny's organization of Community Futures, ours, the university, the college, I mentioned the Economic Development Alliances, right, the province, there's tons of supports out there. You guys are not alone, don't think that you are. We do operate Tech Connect up in the north side, and there are some events that happen up there. It is where Kenny, who's up next, works. So there's always stuff going on. I mentioned that Holly's out doing business link stuff. So connect with Leslie Warren. She is our entrepreneurial program manager. You guys are welcome to come out there. And we also have some business advisors. I'll turn it over to Mike.
Yeah, we have some business advisors that are free of charge, obviously, so that's always a good thing. And they are situated, in some cases, at our Tech Connect facility. In other cases, they can come in based on appointments that you guys would make with them. Generally speaking, we would request that you meet for an intake session with the program manager, Leslie Warren, and her contact information is on the techconnect.ca website. And after she meets with you, she can kind of gauge where you're at with your overall business plan and idea, and then streamline you and send you to the most applicable advisor from there. So again, the advisors can help by providing advice and direction with your plan, and also assistance where required, potentially with things like vouchers and things along those lines too. So they're a great source of information. Don't hesitate to use them, and book your appointment with Leslie if you haven't already done so.
That's all we got, folks.
I won't cut you off again. Scared them all. Thank you very much, and I know that you guys are available for extra
You bet.
questions and stuff later. And Tech Connect is a great resource as well. And some of those advisors work for us and are contracted with us as well too. But everybody is so good about mentoring entrepreneurs, so don't hesitate to ask for their help.
Everybody's tired of seeing Bruce's face.
Yeah, Bruce is everywhere, but he is great. Kenny, I'm sorry we've left you to the end, but Kenny is one of our former CEC winners. In fact, he was a runner-up last year. And he's here to give you a little bit of insight into primary research and how he went about it for his company. And I hope that you will take some information from that, and feel free to contact him later too. So Kenny, Josh.
The best for last.
I don't know about that. Yeah, thanks for having me. like Penny said, I was a CEC competitor last year, and ended up being one of the finalists. And a big part of that was because of the primary research that I did. A little background on myself and my company. I started it the way that most people think a business should start. I didn't have a lot of money to my name, and I thought, okay, I've got this idea of a sign shop, and I had worked in a sign shop before, so I knew there was some money to be made, but I figured I'd start there, something simple, and it worked great, but I just kind of got lucky with that. When you look around Lethbridge, there's lots of sign shops. There's lots of people willing to make signs for you, especially if you look on like Lethbridge Swap and Buy. There's always people looking for custom decals, things like that, and there's 100 people that get tagged. And so it can be kind of a hard market to make money in if you want to keep scaling it larger. But my education background is in the design and drafting sector. So before I started my business, I was doing design and drafting work for a lot of the welding shops around town that were working in oil and gas and the food industry. So I got a couple calls from previous co-workers and businesses that I worked with, and they said, hey, we could use some help here. So I kind of accidentally came across this market that wasn't flooded, and it was connections that I had made before through networking that allowed me to hit the ground running. So it wasn't until a couple years of doing that I started to think a little more about the business side of things, and I thought, well, maybe what is the biggest pain that we're seeing in our industry? So that's kind of where my market research, my primary market research started. I took a 8-week course, the Discover and Validate series with Bruce that you met last week, and I learned about doing your market research and how that is very important, as well as cash flow. I've had a couple of tough lessons with cash flow in the early stages. So what I learned there was you have to go out and talk to people. If you don't want to go and talk to strangers, maybe business isn't for you. You have to go and talk to who might be your potential customer. And what also was something I didn't expect was you have to try not to share your business idea with them. So if I go and talk to my mom, say, Mom, this is what I'm gonna do. I think it's a great idea. Do you think it's a great idea? Of course she thinks it's a great idea. She's my mother. So you have to go talk to unbiased people that you think might be your customer for your idea. So I had 5 pretty simple questions that I would do one-on-one interviews with the people that I felt would use my services with the new service that we were bringing into the business. And what I would start with is I would just ask them, what's a challenge that you come across often? Or what was the last job or project that you worked on that you found challenging? And they would kind of go on, because people love talking about what they're doing, right? It's easier to get people to talk about what's important to them. So that was quite easy. And then I would ask them, well, what did you find challenging about that? And they would go on, tell me about that. And then by the third question, they were kind of getting a little confused to say, well, why is that hard? It kind of seems like an obvious question, but a lot of the times you will get answers that you hadn't thought about yet. And then I would go on to ask them, how do you currently solve that problem? And they would go into why that was. And lastly, I'd say, well, why is that not optimal? Why would you prefer some different way? Like, what's holding you back with that. So you'll learn a lot. A lot of those interviews I did for the primary research totally went a direction that I wasn't even thinking. And it wasn't useless information, but it just helped me learn that what I thought their problem wasn't their top priority or wasn't at the top of mind. So if you do 20 interviews and only one of them aligns with what you're trying to get information for, chances are the idea isn't really needed or isn't a good one. So there was a couple people that I talked with, and in our field it would go towards the project management of things, and that's not what I was working on. But it was kind of nice to know that was also an issue that they had. And quite often you could still ask them for another example. What's another challenge that you have? And then maybe that second one would align with what your idea is. So there's always risk to running with a new idea, but the more you can do that primary and secondary research, you can calculate that risk a lot better.
Any questions for Kenny?
I have, I guess, a more general question. I don't really want to put you on the spot, but I mean, I can't imagine how hard it is to form these questions, especially without bias, as you mentioned earlier, and how kind of trying to direct them to getting the answer you want. But like specifically in my case, like I'm looking at, food processes and providing local organic food options. But when you go out and you ask people, do you want food that's healthy? Do you want food that tastes good? Do you want food that's sustainable? Like no one's ever going to say no to any of those questions, but I feel like it's not really representative of your customer base.
Right.
So I guess my question is like, how do you find help out there to help you form meaningful questions that are going to give you real results?
That's a good question. If you're already asking them about organic and whole foods and local foods, you've already put that idea in their head, right? So I would still kind of stick to a more generic questions, but maybe the environment that you're asking them in, say you're asking people at the local food market these questions, right? Because they're already kind of in that space. They're already thinking about food or crafts, or so that would be. It's already at the top of their mind in that moment. So if you could ask them, tell me about your challenges with grocery shopping, they might flat out say, it's hard to find good vegetables, or it's hard to find stuff that's local that isn't coming from California or wherever, right? So I think keeping the interview questions fairly generic, because you don't want to steer it towards your idea,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
You want to get that honest, top of mind thought.
But yeah, I guess it's just hard, but then maybe they just go off on like canned goods, and you're like, well, that's not good.
Yeah, and I encourage you to just keep running through the questions that you come up with, even when you're in an interview that's not going where you were expecting it to go.
Yeah.
Because you might learn something new. You might find that the people that you want to be your customer are looking for something different than what you're thinking of, but it might be something you can run with, right?
I like the farmer's market idea, or those sort of ones too. But yeah, I can see where you're struggling. And he's right, keep the word organic out of it.
Yes.
Yeah, you kind of just move to where those people are going to be. Right?